we have lots of questions coming through, and a couple of them have already been answered. But we'll go through and we'll see that. But first of all, there's some questions that I want to answer. So just a reminder of how the Q&A works. There's a questions button. You can upvote questions. So if you want to have a question answered, you can upvote that. But I'm just going to cheat. And I'm just going to ask my question because I'm the host and I can do that. So the question that I have too is when we're doing something ethically, when we're ethically hacking something, we obviously have parameters that we have to work within. Is there anything that we have to look out for that could be a legal issue if we perhaps access the wrong things? Do we have to be careful of that when we're starting our ethical hacking journey?
Yeah, this is why I was stressing the fact that when you go on those bug bounties platform, it's really important to read their rule of game, because they will let you know which endpoint you can test, which URLs, which API you can actually test. And if you do test outside of this scope, this is where it's actually illegal. And usually when you test on these platforms, as I mentioned, you do sign an NDA when you're doing so. So you ask permission to actually test those. If you haven't signed an NDA and you actually find one vulnerability, then you can come up to these platforms and try to find those programs. And usually HackerOne, Background Integrity, and other platform will help you to actually convey this reports and be on the safe place. But as I mentioned during the demo, I wasn't supposed to have the code base on my machine, because this is, you can consider it as an IP, intellectual property, that I actually copy and had on my machine. You should actually do all of the things with the patch reversal to have the information. So just make sure to not have copies of databases, user information, and all of those. Make sure to stay in the scope of the testing. And make sure to provide a detailed reports of all of the commands that you've done, because potentially the security team, developer team will actually look at the logs. They could potentially look at what you've done in their systems.
That's great. Thanks so much for that. We have another question here now. There's actually kind of a lot of similar questions about this, and I think that maybe Sneak Learn might be a good place. But if people want to get started, where do the beginners go to kind of? What would be your first steps, maybe to start with, and then what would be the journey kind of beyond that, do you think?
Sure. So there are a couple of websites, good websites, and also free platform where you can start this learning journey, which are Try Hack Me and Hack the Box. There's two great platforms where you can create an account and actually try to pwn those machines. So Try Hack Me, they do have, which I find it a little bit more beginner friendly, because they do have those rooms with step-by-step and walkthrough. When you feel a bit more confident, you can go on Hack the Box and try to hack the beginner machines. So this is potentially a good one. But there's other platforms. You can also try the OS Juice Shop as well, which is an online retail shop that has a lot of vulnerabilities. There's also Pico CTF. There's a lot of those platforms. There's also, yes, as you've mentioned, both. Hack the Box has an academy where you can actually learn a bit more. They do have modules on specific vulnerabilities on how to do those ethical hacking methodologies and workflows. So this is to help you on that path.
Excellent. And there's a couple of more questions along that. I don't think we need to answer them. Are there courses to get into? I think you've done, there are courses, there are certifications, but if you want to start, I think that those are the places to start.
I would say if you want to also demonstrate those to recruiters, and you might not have the budget to actually do the certifications, is start with Try Hack Me, then move to Hack the Box. And when you manage to pwn the box, try to write a walkthrough, a detailed walkthrough on which tools you've actually used, the commands, what was the results, and also recommendations. And then you can start working on creating a portfolio of walkthroughs, and this is something that you could potentially show to recruiters, because you will have hands-on specific tools and the methodology, which is important because you want to demonstrate these skills.
Yeah, that's really cool, because perhaps people don't realize, but there are certifications that you can get, and they go on the end of your, a lot of people have them on the end of their LinkedIn profiles, and a lot of them are great, and it can show the recruiters that you know what you're talking about. But by golly, some of them are so expensive to do. And I feel like what you're saying is that if you don't have the budget to that, then if you document it, then that can be a place to get you started. That's fantastic advice. Now, you touched on AI, and we had a question here from Abdullah, who says, how do you think generative AI will affect your day as an ethical hacker and the cybersecurity field as a whole? Are there real-world applications? So you've kind of touched on this, but is there anything more that you could kind of add on that? Are you using AI when you're doing ethical hacking today?
So here we're talking about generative AI. So this is the code that is generated through Copilot, through ChatGPT, and the other LLMs. So this would depend on what you're doing about this code. So it's great to have those tools. So let's say if we're producing code through ChatGPT, what I would recommend is it would be the same as when you copy paste code from Stack Overflow. Do you have security tools? So it could be GitGuardian, Sneak, just to make sure that you have a pipeline to make sure that you're scanning the code that you will introduce into your code base. So you can use these tools. Just make sure to double check and make sure to understand what you're actually putting into your code base. So the problematic that you might have copy pasting Stack Overflow would be the same with the code generated through different LLMs. But also, this was an open question for not generative AI, but any of the ethical hacking AI tools. Those are powered by AI. This is interesting. It's always the same as with any tools. Have a good understanding of the tools that you're using, and also make sure that you're using as an assistant. Don't lean only on your tool. Make sure to double check every time the results, the output, just to make sure that it doesn't produce hallucinations or false positive or false negative in a sense. So just make sure to use it as an assistant when you're stuck or you need better ideas or explanation, for example, line by line for code or for an exploit. It depends on the usage that you're actually doing it on AI.
Amazing answer. And I need to go on to the next slide just to do my next promotion before we all leave. But we do have time for a couple more questions. But there's going to be another webinar, 29th of November. You can register this. You'll see a pop-up right now so that you can actually register now. This is a mystery webinar, not because we don't know what we're talking about. We actually do. It's an awesome topic, but we're keeping it a secret for reasons that will become known later on. So make sure you join that for everything. But maybe a couple more questions. This one I find quite interesting. What overlap does an ethical hacker have in the day-to-day with a typical software engineer? And what I kind of think, perhaps I'm interpreting this wrong, but if you're in a company and perhaps you're a red teamer, or you're on the AppSec team, how do you interact with the software engineers? How does that? Do you have any advice for how to interact perhaps with software engineers and help them and not just be, the opposite team, let's say?
Sure. So the most important thing is the culture that you have in the organization. So these security teams should be enablers. They shouldn't be blockers or gates for the developers. They should have that collaboration piece and communicate with the team. So it's usually a good thing, for example, doing this kind of webinars with live hacking demos during lunch break or organizing this within the company, so the developers have a better understanding of what is happening in the cybersecurity space, because it's quite exciting when we talk about hacking. Everyone is interested to know, to have a better understanding of it. So this is a good way actually to increase the culture and just to break the silos between both teams. You can also gamify it. So you can dedicate a day just to make sure that you go through the backlog of security vulnerabilities, and you have the security team doing some training, explaining the vulnerability, sitting down with the developers, just to have that collaboration and communication piece. This could also go through the security champion program, for example. So you would have a security champion is basically a developer that is acting as a bridge between security and developer team. They could also upskill through this program. So there are several ways to do so. But the company should make sure that security team are enablers. That's the most important thing.